All right, again, so during the break, I quickly mocked up this person class. All right, so the students have been doing this. Your package name, of course, will be different. But it said the person class has 3 fields. I made them all strings: the name, the address, and the phone number. That way, if the person wanted to for the phone number, they could put parentheses in, they could put in a blank space, they could put in a dash. All right, that's why I didn't make it a numeric field. Then I created a no-arg constructor. Remember the no-arg? Which means if you create one of those objects and you don't pass anything in. All right, so it's just setting everything to the empty string. Well, then we have the other constructor, and that's assuming you're passing in 3 strings. Now, I'm going to ask you a very hard question. The answer is no. Okay? Did I need to put the this dot in front of all these? Okay. Remember, I would have had to if I call this name and I call this address and I call that or phone rather, then I would have had to. But I just put them in there anyway. Now, you may or may not remember this, but that's all I did. I got up to that point, and I was right here about 50 lines down. And again, you may or may not remember, but when you go to source, there's that generate getters and setters. So I chose that, and I told it, well, they were there. They've already been generated. And then I just went back in, and I put a comment by each one. Hopefully, I didn't screw up the comments. Does that make sense? All right, so you can do that when you do that. Okay? In other words, you can key that in, or you can grab it from mine later, or whatever. So that's the first one. The demo is going to end up being really short, but the other thing we have to worry about is the customer. Customer is about the same size as the person class. All right? And I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm just going to grab everything, copy it to the clipboard. Then I'm going to right mouse click on here, choose new. I'm going to put another class in here. And this class, well, the other one was person, so what's this one going to be? Customer. Again, we do not need a main, correct? Correct, because this isn't the demo. Finish. All right. Now, I'm going to get errors because I'm just copying everything in here. But that's okay. I'll go back and fix it in just a couple minutes. So I'm just going to copy in everything. Again, there'll be a bunch of squiggly lines. I don't care. I wanted my comment there. I wanted my package name there. All right, so that's even enough. I'll grab the rest of this stuff that's here, and I'll just get rid of it. Now, please look up on the screen here, because what I've got right now on the screen is not correct. I'm not saying does it have errors or not, but this line is not correct. This assumes that customer extends the Java thing called object. It doesn't. Customer extends person. So that's how you have to do that. Does that make sense? Yes. Yes. And again, this has got all sorts of connotations. And I'm just telling you this because this actually, believe it or not, this became a big thing. You know, the big thing now, and I'm saying this, I don't care. I'm not trying to sound sexist one way or the other. But the big thing now, I heard the stuff I've read this weekend about this girl who's in the Little League. You know, that she's at, did you hear this? In the Little League Championships, there's a girl on the boys team. She throws over 70 miles an hour. She's thrown 2 shutouts in the championship series. She's really good. But what I'm getting to is this used to be called master slave, and believe it or not, there were groups that complained about it. But you'll still see it in some older textbooks. I typically just like to say superclass, subclass, because that's kind of a generically accepted term. The superclass would be the parent, the subclass would be the child. So the superclass here is person, the subclass is customer. But you're right, you can look at it that way too. So it's whatever way really is, it makes the most sense to you. All right, I want to do the same kind of thing that we did before. So some of this is going to look real similar to what we had. So we're going to have private string, customer number, and that's customer number, and private. Remember, this is a Boolean, and this is mailing list. Remember they said it would be a Boolean to say whether or not you wanted to be on the mailing list. Add to mail list. All right. Now, if you remember on the other one, the next thing we did was we created the no-arg constructor. Remember that? So someplace in here, and I probably still have it, not here. I still have that stuff I copied. See that? So it's just going to help because I'm trying to get this done fairly quickly. Not to waste, to ram it down your throats, but this is kind of what I want to do here. So I'm going to copy that. It's going to give me errors because right now it's got person, and that should say customer. And this should be customer. And this should be mailing list. And this shouldn't even be there. And mailing list is a Boolean. And hopefully you know this because hopefully your instructor knew enough to tell you this last semester. But when you're initializing Boolean variables and you're not sure, you should always initialize them to false. Always err on the side of caution. All right? So there's our no-arg constructor. Does all that make sense? We've got two fields, a string field that we're initializing to the empty string, and the Boolean that we're initializing to false. So it just initializes the customer object variables to the empty string or to, and the string variables to false. All right. Is there anything that I've done in there that doesn't make sense to people? It's your time to ask. And I realize if you haven't done it for the summer, you might have forgotten some of it. But hopefully the remembering will go quickly. All right. So the other one that we want to create is the other constructor, right? We want to create the other one. Hopefully everybody had all this stuff. But for the other constructor. So again, I can go back here and copy this stuff that I had. I'm going to have to make changes. Again, right now when I copy this in, I'm going to get a bunch of error messages. That's okay. It all fields to the passed in values. That's good. So now it's just customer, and this will be string, and that's customer number, and it'll be Boolean, and that'll be mailing list. I could have just called them C and M. It doesn't really matter. So that's CN, and that's ML. It's gone. Is there anything I've done there that doesn't make sense to people? You see that the two classes in many ways are clones of one another. So you might say, well, then why did you even do that? Because right now, every single, in the person class, everything that we defined in here to be public is automatically, all of those things that are in there, the get name, set name, they're automatically passed to the customer. So a customer can set and get his or her name, his or her address, his or her phone number. And since they're a child of the person, they automatically have that stuff, it comes through. Okay? That kind of thing. All right, I don't know if I put it that well, but hopefully that made some sense. Now, I want to get down to here. I'm right now near the bottom, and I can go in again and say source, generate getters and setters, and I want them both. And there's my get customer, set customer, is mailing list, and set mailing list. All right. Notice it put is mailing list on there because by default most Boolean routines like that are is. I didn't put that there. It did. It meaning the system. I could, if I really wanted to, I could call that get mailing list. It wouldn't matter. But the connotation is since you're returning a Boolean, you use is instead of get. Either way is okay. Again, the question that got asked this morning in the same kind of way. There's no police that are watching this stuff and making sure that you're doing something the way, a certain way. Grab that comment. So that's get customer number. Now, is there anything that's in there that doesn't make sense to people? We're just setting up a couple classes. The one class has got, it's a person class. It's got the person's name. It's the one you've got. It's got the person's name, their address, and their phone number. This is set up the same way, except the fields that we're passing in are different. Since this class extends the person class, it automatically inherits all those fields. Now, you can't access those fields directly. In other words, I can't come in here and say, I can't in here, for example, and say something like this. Name equals Jeff. Why can't I do that? Yeah, they're private in the class, so they're only known directly within that class. But I set them in the class, so that's what matters. All right. Now, I made 2 mistakes in here. I'd like to say I did them on purpose to show you something, but I made 2 mistakes in here. Anybody have any idea? It kind of goes back to what Zane just said. Anybody have any idea? There's a line that should be at the beginning. There's a hint of each one of those routines. What's the line? Nope, there. That sets the customer's name and address and phone number. And the other one, when I call super, all right, what do I have to, so what do we have here? Maybe I'm trying to make sure that, because I wrote this earlier, so customer, I do have to add these. So not just so string, name, string, address, string, phone number. I should have put all those in. I didn't, sorry. But now when I call super, what do I pass? What do I pass? Name, address, and phone number. So when you look at this, can you start to see the correlation here, exactly what we're doing? We're creating a base class, another name for it, which is person, which we're setting things that no matter who we create, we've got a customer. And maybe later we don't want to in this example, but maybe we would want to add a supplier, not just a customer. And if we had supplier also extend customer, or I'm sorry, extend person, we'd automatically have their name, address, and phone number. What if we had preferred customer? Then we could have preferred customer that extended customer. So it would get everything that a customer would have and everything the customer's parent would have, which is person. Does that make sense? Because that's the hallmark of inheritance right there. Yes. Yes, you'd make it into another class. Now it is legal in Java to embed classes within classes. We've actually done a little bit of that. This wouldn't be a good place to do that. I'm not saying you couldn't do that and make it work, but it's the old, again, if I want to pound in a nail bad enough with a wrench, I can do it, but it's probably not going to go in very well. You know what I'm saying? It's that kind of an idea. So yeah, your point's well taken. Yes, it would be in its own file. Right. So does everything that's in there make sense? I'm asking you this. Is there anything that we just looked at that doesn't make sense? Yeah. Yes. Okay, the question was, I think, if I'm reading what you said right, okay, what we want to do is we want to come in and we want to instantiate something, right? Okay. If we only wanted to create a person, just a person, then we would only pass in name, address, and phone number, okay? If, instead of that, we wanted to create a customer, we'd have to pass in all 5 values. Is that? Yes. And what you're going to see later, not now, but later, let's assume, for example, with this one, let's assume that we never wanted to actually create a person. It's too generic. You see what I'm saying? We never really want to create a person class, but we still want to be able to base these classes off a person class. Can we do that? The answer is yes. Then when you do that, before person, you say public abstract. And if you make an abstract class, that class can't be instantiated or newed. We could have done that here. And that would have made it illegal then to new a person. All right? That's correct. Yes. Usually when you do that, not always, but usually, the other thing that you can do if you do that, I could sit there, for example, where you got get name, I could create another method. Let's just say that I'm making this method up, so I'm going to get rid of it right away. But I could come in here and create this. I could say public, void. All right, it's not going to return anything, and I'm just going to call it some method. Okay? And it's not going to have anything passed into it. Guess what? That's legal. What that means is if I create that in a class that says, if that class says up here, abstract, all right, if that does that, and I create something like this, then what I'm doing is I'm creating a contract that says that any class that extends this class must implement that method. All right? We're going to get into that, and I'm being a little generic, bless you, the way we're doing it, but just so you start to see this stuff. All right, so let's take a look at demo, which is the last class. All right, so I've saved both of these. I'll print out the customer. I can print that out too if you want it. All right, otherwise I'm going to put the whole project out there. Okay. So I'm going to come back in here. There we go. And I'm going to right mouse click again. And I'm going to choose new again and class. This time, this will be my person customer, and I do want the main in there. All right? I like to call it, if I'm going to demo something, I like to call it like person customer demo. You don't have to do that. There's nothing magic about the names you use. But again, what you find when you start to program is no matter what your instructor says about writing comments, etc., if you get a job out in the real world, you comment when you can. But to try to make it a little easier for people, you try to use names that are at least descriptive of what it is you're trying to do. That's at least a means of some self-documentation. If you looked at the majority of the code, the stuff I've looked at when I was a programmer, it's crap. The names people use are just, they're incredible that they would use stuff that's that bad. Single letters, stuff that doesn't make sense, stuff that's nothing like what it's describing. And there are people who do that, and there are people who actually do that because they consider that a form of job security. Well, if you've ever heard of obfuscated code, if you write really obfuscated code, it's so convoluted that you're the only one who can understand it. And people delude themselves into thinking, well, they'll never get rid of me because I'm that valuable. No, you're just that stupid. So let's just say here, create a customer object. All right, that's what we'll do. So, customer, why don't you put your name in here? All right, so I'll be Jeff. You can be whatever you want to be. You can say customer if you want to. This is legal in Java. Hopefully you remember this. Why is this legal? Why is that legal? It's right in front of your face. What? Right. You're both kind of right, but Mike's, I guess, a little more right in that the class name is in capital letters, capital C, so you can call the variable name the same thing. Some people do that. Some people consider that to be bad practice. When we get into where we're starting to do some work with GUI, what do you think is the #1 name that people call their buttons? Button. And it gets worse because you got 10 buttons. There'll be button 1, button 2, button 3, all the way to button 10. So rather than writing a semi-descriptive name, granted it's a little more work, but that describes exactly what it is you're trying to do. And then when you actually write the code for it, instead of having it be edit button, click, type of thing, it's button 3, click. Which, makes it hard for somebody who's, that's why, there's so much code, and that's how most people write code. Well, I'm in a hurry. No, it takes just as much time to do it right as it does to do it wrong, or as much time to do it wrong as it does to do it right. I could keep going, but it's going to go off the page. So I'm going to put in my opening curly, or my opening paren there, and I'll put my closing paren down here someplace, but I'm just going to do it like this. What's next? Phone number. There's three things. Customer number. I made that customer number up. That's what it is. Doesn't mean anything. All right. So does everybody understand? This correlates to the person's name, person's address, person's phone number. Then from the customer class, customer number and customer mailing list preference. Does all that make sense? You don't have to put the same thing. And you can put any string in for here and for here and for here and technically for here. All right. And then we come in and we say display the customer data. All right, system.out.println. We're just going to have a bunch of these. All right, so what? There's how many fields? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields. Let's put the first. Whoops, that's not good. Copy. Put that in about 3 more times. All right, here's a little quiz for you. Seriously. What do I put here? No. Okay. Zane's on the right track. How about that's why you write a getter. Space in there so it looks a little nicer. Let's see. All right, now I could just print out the mailing list, right? I could print out the mailing list, but it's going to print out customer mailing list true or false, which could be confusing if somebody's reading it. You see what I'm saying? Because that's how Booleans print out. So I'm just going to come in here and say if Jeff dot mailing list, or it's is mailing list, sorry. What does that mean? If it's true. Yeah. No, technically it's if it's true. So in other words, if it's set to true. If I did a not in there, it would be set to false. All right. So if it is mailing list, I don't know, customer wants to be on mailing list. Again, never key in code when you don't have to. Customer does not want to be on mailing list. All right. So again, we're done. But look at this by Thursday, and if you have questions, ask. All right. Other than the fact that we're using inheritance, there's nothing in this entire program that you haven't already done. There's nothing. All right. Now I got to see if I made any mistakes. And since it's me, there's probably a good chance I did. So run. I didn't. There it is. Now it's not beautiful, but it's functional, right? That's what we're looking for. There's the name from get name, the address from get address, the phone from get phone, the customer number from get number. I put true in there, so customer wants to be on the mailing list. All right? And if I'm going to check this, one thing that I really should do is I should run it again, and I should put false here. Okay? At a minimum, I should do that for my checks, and I should save it again, and I should run it again. Customer does not want to be on mailing list. You should be, this is, whether you realize this or not, and I say this is no joke. You're making the transition now from novice to intermediate. These are the kinds of things that you have to start thinking about. All right? Because these are the things that employers are going to be expecting from you. You go to work for someplace, of course they'll have orientation, they'll tell you how to do this, they'll tell you how to do that, but they assume that's something that would be pretty basic. That if there's certain things in here that you're checking, that you're actually going to check them. Hopefully you remember too, still is easy to blow this program up, isn't it? All right, instead of a first name in here, I'm going to put 126. Okay, I'm doing that on purpose. Notice it already has given me the squigglies. I don't care. I'm going to run it anyway. Errors. Proceed with launch, you bet. All right, and it's telling me it doesn't understand it. When we get into the next chapter, 11, that's when we write exceptions. So if you do something like that, you'll now be able to handle it. But as of right now, you can't, because you don't have the, we haven't gone through the stuff to handle it. No, we could have put it in double quotes. That you could put 126. Now it's a string. That's fine. But what I did was I purposely put something in there that I knew was illegal. Now it's just going to say that my name is 126. All right. But with any of these, even for this, if I put in anything other than true or false right there, it's going to blow up also. All right. Any questions on any of that? All right. So what I'm going to do, looks like it's all been saved, is I'm going to go back and grab the future value PC. It's not there. Eclipse. I don't remember where I saved this now. PC. There it is. Yeah, there it is. So if you look in here under the source, you got to dig your way through it if you remember that. There's customer, there's person, and there's person demo. All right, so I'm going to grab the thing that I call PC, copy, go over to the P drive, put a folder in there with today's name on it, or today's date on it, I should say, 08-18-2014. And there it is. All right, you don't have to type that in, but I do want you, if you get a chance, to both look at that and look at Chapter 10. Because we're going to go through the entire chapter. And by that time, I'll make a determination over what your assignment will be. I'll let you know as soon as you come in here on Thursday. All right? And then you'll have next Tuesday to work on it. But we're going to just try to cut down the due dates, so to speak, so it'll be due in a week. Or whatever. We'll see. All right? Questions on that? No, but you're right, and that's a good, Zane just asked a good question. He said you really didn't need a no-R constructor. No, but I should have called those no-R constructors just to make sure. I actually should have made a person object too to make sure all that was working. So I should have really instantiated 4 objects. A person no-arg, a person with arguments, a customer no-arg, and a customer with arguments. you guys an update too if I haven't told you. Now this, to my knowledge, what I'm about to tell you is all up to date and it's correct. All right, people who graduated last year. Tony, I think you already know, he's a developer at web developer at Foremost Media. Kim is a Visual Basic.net programmer at Data Dimensions. Doug had nothing to do with her hire, was not involved in it at all, but was told by the person who interviewed her she was a great interview, which was amazing to Kim because that's the first time she ever interviewed for a job in her life. All right. Keegan still has 2 more gen ed classes, so he's either still here or I don't know. Steve has gotten a job. He's working for some hospital. He's writing SQL queries. I don't know what hospital. I don't know what the job is. He just said, Jeff, I got a job. I'm doing some queries for a hospital. Okay. Yvonne works for Crystal Computing. She does help desk work and she does development work. I'm trying to think who else was there. Mike Burkholder, the big guy you might have seen, he wanted to go on for a 4-year degree. All right. Stefan, you see him around here all the time. If you don't know Stefan's story, he's from Serbia. He doesn't have his green card. Since he doesn't have his green card, he can't work. He can do all the work he wants here, but they can't pay him. So he actually lives in Elgin, Illinois. He drives like 50 or 60 miles, 70 miles, whatever it is, probably 75 miles to get here each way. And I asked him, why do you do that? And he said, because $2 to $4 grand a year or a semester is much better than 20 grand a year, which is what they want to charge at Elgin Community College, or 20 grand a semester. That's what he told me. He said it's like going to a 4-year school. And hopefully I didn't miss anybody, but you know, sometimes people like to know. No, I'm talking people who actually, the ones who graduated last May. All right. The other thing that we're going to have to talk about sooner or later is if any of you have not yet done an internship and you want to do an internship, all right, you got to let me know. And if you've got any contacts that you have, contact them. That could be anything from your church or an organization that you're involved in or whatever. All right, and is Ryan still here? Okay, yeah, I know he's got work. But Ryan had been doing an internship. I don't know how much he had done. There actually is I didn't know this, there is a men's homeless shelter in Janesville that's called GIFTS, G-I-F-T-S. He was starting to do some work for them. I don't know how far he got, but since if you don't know, he's technically staying in this program, but he's now taking the program that's going to be at Milton. All right, the MITS program, whatever the heck that is. All right, and so if anybody is interested in possibly doing it, you're not getting paid for it. I know some of you have talked to me and said, I can only do an internship if I get paid. Then it's probably going to be your responsibility to find one. The other thing that you can do is feel free and tell them in the letter that I told you to, but send Doug an email. All right, and it's I'll put it on here right now. I'll put it on the board. It is dtabit. I'm always afraid I'm going to strangle myself for this. So it's dtabit. No, not at Blackhawk. dtabit at datadimensions.com. He told me that he was going to look into possible paid internship. He didn't know if he'd get any, if he'd get one, if he'd get two, or if he'd get several. He didn't know how much money they would be paying people if they did allow that. He didn't know. But it would be a good foot in the door because many people who have gone there as an intern have ended up being hired there. Kim was not an intern there. I also, in the past, and I'm sure there's going to be work for him, we've done the Janesville, I think it's the YMCA. I'll have to go back and look. And Tony did that last year. He totally rewrote their website. All right. Yes, and that's the other one. His Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and that's of Rock, Greene, and I think it's Jefferson counties. I don't even have a problem if there's enough work if two of you want to share on an internship. I don't care. Now, Kelly's done an internship already. All right, we've talked about that already. Now, if you tell me that I've got a job, could I use that? It depends on what you do for your job. I'd rather not go into that right now. I'd rather have you come talk to me individually. You know, I've told this story, and it's true. Years ago, I had a student. She came up to me, and I said, what do you do? She said, oh, I work with files all the time. I found out she was a clerk. She literally took files that were in file things and put them, and until I found out she was going to get internship credit for that. I can't do that. But if you work someplace or can work someplace that's got an IT component to it. I know I sent this out in the summer. I don't know how many, if I remember to send it to all of you or not, but I know for a while Beloit was looking. The city of Beloit was looking for interns. All right. Okay. All right. There you go. He said Rock County is always looking, and they offer about $10 an hour. All right. I know, and as an example, and we can possibly work on this. Zach had talked to me about we have the lab assistants now, but they're always looking for tutors here for the non-IT people. All right, could you do that? I don't know. It would depend on what you're tutoring them in. I mean, if you're tutoring them in oral comm, I don't know what that has to do with an IT internship. If you're tutoring them in math and logic, then possibly. If you're tutoring them in Word or Access or Excel, that's different. Yeah. It's a minimum of 72 hours. There's no maximum. The question, okay, tell me if I'm answering the question. All right. Out on the C drive, on the P drive, if you look under the 152, 182, this is a class that you'll all sign up for, anybody who's at least is going to graduate, all right, in spring. You fill out these 3 things. And actually, you fill out one or two of them. Let me open them up. So you get an internship. After you keep track of your hours. I trust you. I do. So if you've only done 2 hours and you tell me 72, I have no way of knowing. And if you're working on a website for somebody, they're not going to ask to track your hours. So you end up doing that yourself. So you do this. This is the checklist form. This, you'll have to send me a copy of your resume, and you'll have to send me a copy of a cover letter. And I mark the hell out of it and give it back to you. And if as an example, not to pick on him, but let's say I do it to Mike. He sends me a resume, and it's pretty good, but I think, wow, it'd look better if you did it like this. If he says, I don't like it then he shouldn't change it. It's your resume. It's your cover letter. But at least I've done that. I've given you my take on what you've done. If you agree with it, great. Implement it. If you agree with some of it, implement some of it. If you agree with none of it, keep it the way it is. I can't believe the number of people in the last few years, for example, if you know this or not, like Word has resume templates. I would never use that. All right, a lot of people can tell when they get that stuff in, oh, that's just a template. They think you don't care. All right, I'll show you mine, not right now, but the documentation, have you done all that stuff? So this is something you just have to look at to make sure you've done. This is, the employer fills this out. Typically, you can either send them a hard copy, all right, and have them fill it out, or you can send them an electronic copy, and they come in here, oh yeah, he did this, X type of thing. Well, that doesn't look very good, but you get the idea. All right, so you can do it either way. It doesn't matter. And the last thing that's in here is a little thing on the duties to be what you did. And if you only did, I wrote a website, okay, then you don't have 6 things. And you give me some kind of an idea. It's like when Kim did this last year. She said, Jeff, I would work on it sometimes for 15 or 20 minutes. Sometimes I worked on it for 8 hours. I said, then just kind of fudge it and make sure you got at least 72 hours. Then that way, to be honest with you, my butt's covered if they ever come back and ask me that. All right. The course should be called internship, but it's called field study because there's no guarantee that every one of you are going to get an internship. All right. It's gotten to the point. Sometimes I'll get in a month, I'll get 5 or 6 calls. Sometimes I'll go 5 or 6 months without a call. That's why, if you're interested, all right, then contact somebody you know. And if you know somebody who's starting up a business, volunteer to do that for. And I've shown this kind of thing before, just so you see this. I think I did it backwards. No, it doesn't necessarily have to be programming. No. Well, I don't know where it is now. But the Fitness Zone is a gym I used to belong to. And what I did last year for the, just so you know, for the ASP.NET class, what we also did in addition to the regular class stuff is I had the guy come in and They each wrote a website for him. And he picked the one he liked the best. I thought it was Fitness Zone SB, but for some reason it's not finding it. Let's see. But it was totally written by Jennifer Scott. It's not Fitness Zone Illinois. I don't know. The people, that is it. Okay, sorry, I'm wrong. There's the home. That's Kevin. He's one of the owners. That's Brenda. Somewhere, there it is. That's his wife. That's the other owner. They wanted this irritating-looking thing to be in here all the time. Wasn't that Jen wanted to do that? Weight loss, etc. I can tell it's changed. This stuff shouldn't be on lines like that, but they made the changes that they wanted to have done. And she started writing it in ASP.NET. It became so unwieldy, she put it in PHP. Now, did that help her get a job? I'm not going to say at all that it did. All right. But it's a requirement for the program. As long as I'm involved in this program, you will be required, ideally, to take some kind of an internship. If for no other reason, the first time I've actually done something that's not school, and if you find out you hate it, maybe it's a little late, but then you found out you hated it. I had to do the same thing when